There are moments in life that don't announce themselves with flashing lights or grand ceremonies, but their significance is undeniable the instant they arrive. You might be sitting in an ordinary room at an ordinary time of day, and suddenly something extraordinary happens. A message reaches you. An invitation is extended. A door that you didn't even realize existed quietly opens. And when you step back to process it, you realize the weight of what it means. Someone who could have called upon anyone, someone who holds in their grasp the ability to shape the course of industries and even civilizations, has chosen you. Not randomly, not out of convenience, but because there is something in you that aligns with the future being built. That realization should not just excite you. It should transform the way you see yourself. Too often we underestimate our role in the bigger picture. We walk through life thinking that influence belongs to someone else, that vision is reserved for a handful of people whose names we see in headlines. But the truth is, history has never been written by the untouchable few. It has always been propelled forward by individuals who, at some point, were simply willing to step into an opportunity others dismissed. The power of a single decision, a single idea, a single meeting, has again and again altered the trajectory of humanity. So when an opportunity comes directly to you, you must understand that it is not a coincidence. It is recognition of possibility. The request to meet is not about formality. It is a signal. It says, there is something here that matters. There is something in you that resonates with the same frequency as progress itself. And progress doesn't come easily. It doesn't arrive as comfort. It demands sleepless nights, endless failures, and an almost irrational level of persistence. To even be considered worthy of such a request means that somewhere along the line, you've demonstrated a refusal to settle for mediocrity. You've shown that you're not content to watch the future be built by others. You're determined to have a hand in shaping it. Now, let's pause and think practically about what this moment represents. Every major leap forward in human history began with conversations like this. Someone dared to articulate an idea that sounded impossible. Someone else was willing to listen. And between them, the impossible began to take shape. Airplanes, electricity, vaccines, space travel. None of it was inevitable. It happened because of human beings willing to share their vision at a table, often uncertain of the outcome, but absolutely certain of the necessity to try. When you are invited into such a moment, it is not merely an honor. It is a responsibility. Responsibility is a word many people shy away from because it implies weight, burden, accountability. But responsibility, when paired with vision, becomes fuel. It is the recognition that your actions matter, that what you choose to say or not say can alter the trajectory of countless others. That's what this meeting represents. It's not just about exchanging words. It's about igniting the possibility that those words will turn into actions, those actions into innovations, and those innovations into legacies. What makes this even more powerful is the context of our times. We live in an era where change accelerates faster than at any point in history. Entire industries rise and collapse in the span of a decade. Knowledge doubles at a rate we can barely measure, and technology evolves so rapidly that what feels futuristic today becomes outdated tomorrow. In such a landscape, to be requested personally is to be singled out as someone who might have the clarity to not just keep up, but to lead. Someone who doesn't just react to change, but drives it. Someone who understands that the future doesn't happen to us. It is built by us. Think about that carefully. The world is filled with people who wait. They wait for opportunity, for permission, for certainty. They wait until every variable is in their favor, until the risk is gone, until the path is clear. But the reality is, the world has never been shaped by those who wait. It has always been shaped by those who act. And this request is a reminder that you've been identified as one of those people who are willing to act. You're not waiting for perfect conditions. You're stepping into uncertainty with the belief that progress is worth the risk. This is not meant to flatter you. It's meant to wake you up. Because moments like this will not come often. They arrive in flashes, and they demand readiness. If you approach it casually, it will slip through your hands. But if you approach it with intention, if you walk into it with the mindset that this is your chance to bring forth every ounce of vision, creativity, and courage you have, it can alter not just your own path, but the path of countless others who will never even know your name, but will live in the world you helped to shape. That is why this request matters. Not because of prestige, not because of recognition, but because it is a signal that the future is calling. And for reasons that may not even be fully clear yet, it has chosen you as a part of its design. There is a reason why some people are called forward when others are not. It's not a matter of luck or timing. It's alignment. Alignment between vision and action. You don't get noticed because of what you think you might do someday. You get noticed because of what you've already demonstrated in the face of obstacles. The invitation to sit at a table where the future is being designed happens because something in your journey has signaled that you are unwilling to settle for the ordinary. That signal may have come from the way you turned a setback into a lesson, the way you refused to compromise on a principle, or the way you pursued a solution long after others gave up. What stands out isn't perfection. What stands out is persistence. Persistence is the universal language of progress. Anyone can dream, anyone can imagine, but very few have the endurance to chase those dreams past the point of comfort. Most stop when the challenge grows heavy, when the criticism gets louder, or when the failures begin to stack. And yet, history shows that those who push just a little further, who carry their vision one step beyond the breaking point, are the ones who redefine what's possible. That quality is rare, and it's exactly why some people are called into opportunities like this. Think about the mechanics of it. Every major breakthrough you've ever benefited from, whether it's electricity powering your home, a phone connecting you to the world, or a rocket soaring into the sky, was born from someone who persisted long after others had walked away. The common thread wasn't resources. It wasn't connections. It wasn't even intelligence in the traditional sense. It was the refusal to quit. The refusal to accept that what was being attempted couldn't be done. That refusal is the currency that moves humanity forward, and when someone recognizes it in you, it becomes impossible to ignore. And here's the part many overlook. Alignment isn't just about skill. Skills can be taught, knowledge can be acquired, tools can be built. Alignment is about mindset. It's about how you see problems. Do you see them as walls, or do you see them as puzzles? Do you see them as final, or do you see them as temporary? People who shift entire industries aren't the ones who face fewer problems. They're the ones who approach those problems differently. They understand that every obstacle is a disguised opportunity. They look at failure not as evidence of weakness, but as data. And they move forward again and again, not because it's easy, but because the alternative, standing still, is unacceptable. This is why opportunities seek out certain people. It's not about appearances. It's not about background. It's about energy. The energy of someone who refuses to stagnate. The energy of someone who is obsessed not with preserving the present, but with building the future. When you have that energy, it becomes magnetic. It attracts those who are on similar missions. It makes the impossible conversations not only possible, but necessary. Because when two people with that energy meet, ideas multiply. Visions sharpen. Plans evolve into realities. Now let's break this down into something useful, something you can apply right now. If alignment is what creates these opportunities, then the question becomes, how do you live in alignment every single day? The answer is deceptively simple. You act as though the future you imagine already depends on your behavior today. Every project you take on, every challenge you face, every choice you make, you approach it as though it matters on a scale larger than yourself. Because it does. Progress is not built by isolated individuals. It's built by interconnected actions rippling outward. When you commit to giving your best in every situation, you're not just shaping your own path, you're shaping the foundation of what comes next for everyone else. This is where education and motivation intersect. Education gives you the tools, knowledge, frameworks, strategies. Motivation gives you the drive to use them when it feels inconvenient or even impossible. But the real breakthrough happens when you combine them into a discipline. When you discipline yourself to align daily actions with the future you envision, you transform from being someone with potential to someone with impact. And people notice impact. They can't ignore it. That's why you were called forward. Because somewhere along the way, your actions showed that you were more than just an observer. You were a builder. And so the invitation is not about filling a chair in a room. It's about bringing that energy, that alignment, into a space where it can multiply. It's about being part of conversations that may sound impossible to others, but feel inevitable to you. It's about recognizing that the reason you were chosen isn't random. It's evidence that your mindset, your persistence, and your vision have already begun to send ripples outward. And the people who are shaping the future felt those ripples. The truth is, everyone has ideas, but very few translate those ideas into action with enough consistency to matter. The difference between being overlooked and being requested lies in that simple gap, the gap between intention and execution. Close that gap, and suddenly doors open that you never even knew existed. And when they do, you'll realize what you've probably suspected all along, that you weren't chosen by accident. You were chosen because you represent the rare combination of resilience, vision, and action that progress demands. There's a moment in life when you realize that being noticed isn't about being the loudest voice in the room or the one with the most polished answers. It's about the depth of the signal you send out through your actions, the signal that says, "I will not stop until this vision becomes real." That signal doesn't fade in the background noise, it cuts through it. And when it's recognized, when someone sees that spark of refusal in you, it's impossible for them to look away. That's why you're here. It's not because you followed the same path as everyone else. It's because you chose to carve one that others couldn't imagine. Every generation is faced with a question: who will step forward to lead, not with authority, but with imagination? Leadership in its true sense is not about control. It's about direction. It's about painting a picture of what doesn't yet exist and then convincing others it's not just possible. It's necessary. That's the kind of force that moves civilizations forward, and it's the kind of force that is recognized when you're given the chance to sit at a table of progress. But let's be honest about what makes that recognition possible. It isn't charisma. It isn't luck. It isn't the absence of failure. What makes it possible is resilience. Resilience is what allows someone to stand when others fall, to adapt when circumstances shift, to keep pushing forward even when the metrics, the experts, and the critics all scream, impossible. That quality alone separates the dreamers from the doers. And it's the doers, those who are willing to bleed for their vision, who shape the reality the rest of the world will one day take for granted. Take any example from history, and you'll see this pattern. The inventors who revolutionized transportation were laughed at before they changed how humanity moves. The pioneers who sought to communicate across continents were told it couldn't be done before their ideas rewired the way the world connects. The individuals who reached for the stars were called foolish before they broke the boundaries of Earth itself. What ties them all together is not that they never failed. It's that they refused to accept failure as the final word. They let every rejection, every setback, every collapse fuel the next attempt. That refusal is what got them noticed. That refusal is why we even remember their names. Now consider what that means for you. The reason your name rose above the noise is because your resilience has been visible. Whether in your work, your studies, your projects, or your pursuit of something larger, you've shown that you don't simply fold under pressure. You adapt to it. And that adaptability is the foundation of progress. A system, a business, or even a civilization that cannot adapt is destined to collapse. The individuals who embody adaptability, however, are the ones who keep the flame of innovation alive. Let's turn this into something practical. If resilience and adaptability are what open doors, then the lesson here is that every challenge you face is not a barrier, but a training ground. The setbacks you've endured weren't there to break you. They were there to prepare you for the very opportunities you're facing now. Each time you were knocked down and got back up, you were sending a signal into the world that you're not finished. That signal is cumulative. It grows louder every time you rise. And eventually, it becomes impossible for those shaping the future to ignore. This is why recognition comes not when you expect it, but when you've earned it quietly, consistently, over time. It comes when your track record of persistence has stacked up high enough that it demands to be seen. It comes when your failures have become so abundant that they prove not weakness, but determination. People underestimate how powerful that proof is. Anyone can succeed once, but to fail 10 times and return for the 11th, that is a sign of something extraordinary. This is the energy you're being asked to bring forward. Not perfection, not polish, but persistence. The request to meet you is an acknowledgement that you have demonstrated enough resilience to warrant a deeper conversation. It means your journey has already created ripples, and now the question is whether you're willing to turn those ripples into waves. Here's the educational piece. Resilience is not a fixed trait, it's a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Every challenge, every failure, every disappointment is an opportunity to train that muscle. And the stronger it becomes, the more equipped you are to handle the scale of opportunities that lie ahead. This is why the path to being noticed is filled with adversity. It's the adversity itself that shapes you into someone capable of handling what comes next. Without that shaping, you wouldn't be ready. So instead of dreading the obstacles, you begin to welcome them. You understand that they are not interruptions to your journey. They are the journey. Every obstacle you've already overcome has brought you here. And every obstacle you face moving forward will prepare you for what's beyond this moment. That mindset doesn't just make you resilient, it makes you unstoppable. And unstoppable people are the ones who carry the future on their shoulders. That is why this meeting matters. Not because it is convenient, but because it is necessary. Necessary to bring together those who have proven they can endure the storms, those who can turn chaos into clarity, those who refuse to be silenced by failure. That is who you've shown yourself to be. And that is why you were chosen. Necessity is the force that has driven every great leap forward in human history. It is the unspoken pressure that pushes people to invent, to innovate, to explore, and to risk everything for something greater. When survival is at stake, when comfort is no longer an option, the human mind transforms. It shifts from asking, "Can this be done?" to "How do we make it happen?" That shift is where breakthroughs are born. The reason you've been brought into this moment is because what you carry isn't just an idea. It's a necessity waiting to be answered. Look at the pattern that has repeated for centuries. Fire wasn't discovered because it was entertaining. It was discovered because it was essential for survival. The wheel wasn't created because it was novel, but because it was necessary to move further and faster than human strength alone could allow. Electricity, medicine, airplanes, the internet, none of these emerged as luxuries. They were solutions to pressing needs, born out of a refusal to accept limitations. Necessity isn't glamorous, but it is relentless. And it's the same relentless force that has placed you in this position today. The conversation you're being asked to step into is not about convenience or ceremony. It's about the urgency of what comes next. It's about the recognition that the challenges ahead of us are too complex to be solved by people who think in conventional ways. They require minds that are willing to see necessity not as a burden, but as an invitation to create. That's the lens through which you're being viewed. Not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has the mindset to chase them down, no matter how improbable they seem at first. This is where education becomes powerful. Education, in its purest sense, is not about memorizing information or collecting degrees. It's about equipping yourself with tools to respond to necessity. Every skill you've acquired, every concept you've mastered, every lesson you've learned has been training for the moment when necessity calls your name. And right now it is calling. The problems facing humanity, whether technological, environmental, or social, are not waiting politely for solutions. They are pressing in on us, demanding answers, demanding builders, demanding resilience. To be invited into that challenge is to be reminded that you have the tools and the perspective to make a difference. Motivation plays its role here as well. Without motivation, education is inert. It sits quietly on shelves, in notebooks, in data banks. Motivation is the spark that turns knowledge into application, that transforms theory into practice. When necessity appears, motivation becomes the engine that pushes people past hesitation and into execution. And in execution lies transformation. That's what you're being asked to bring, not just knowledge, not just passion, but the ability to transform necessity into solutions through consistent, focused action. Think about how this applies in your own life. How many times have you been backed into a corner where giving up felt easier, but somehow you pushed through? Those moments were more than struggles. They were lessons. They showed you that when the situation becomes urgent enough, you're capable of far more than you believed. You've already proven that necessity sharpens your focus, heightens your creativity, and fuels your persistence. And because you've proven it, you've been chosen to step into a conversation where necessity isn't abstract. It's immediate. The beauty of necessity is that it eliminates excuses. When something must be done, when the stakes are high enough, the usual reasons for hesitation dissolve. Suddenly it doesn't matter if you're tired, if the resources are limited, or if the odds are long. What matters is the outcome, and the outcome must be achieved. That mindset is the difference between those who talk about the future and those who build it. You are here because your actions have shown that you're in the second category. That when pressed by necessity, you act, you adapt, and you deliver. This is why the meeting isn't about filling time with small talk. It's about aligning with people who understand the urgency of the problems before us and who are ready to apply every resource, every ounce of energy to addressing them. You're being asked to bring your clarity, your vision, and your courage into a space where necessity drives everything. And that should excite you, because necessity is what strips away distraction and forces true creativity to the surface. Here's what's educational about this. If necessity is the mother of invention, then adversity is its classroom. Every challenge you face is a lesson in adaptation. Every obstacle forces you to think differently, to stretch beyond your comfort zone, to reimagine what's possible. The more you lean into those lessons, the more prepared you are to meet necessity when it arrives. And when it does, you no longer fear it. You welcome it. You see it as the very thing that will pull from you a level of greatness you didn't know was possible. That is why you've been requested here. Not because everything is easy, but because everything is urgent. Because the necessity of this time requires voices and minds that are not paralyzed by fear or doubt, but energized by the chance to solve what others avoid. You've demonstrated that capacity already, and now the challenge is to scale it. To bring it into a space where necessity meets opportunity, and where together, solutions can be forged that change everything. The question that defines whether someone rises to an extraordinary moment is not whether they have ideas, but whether they have the courage to act on them. Ideas are abundant. Every person in every corner of the world carries them. But courage is rare. Courage is the filter that separates those who speak of possibility from those who bring possibility into existence. And when an opportunity like this arrives, courage is the one ingredient that matters most. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Fear will always be present when the stakes are high. It's supposed to be. Fear reminds you that what you're doing matters, that the outcome has weight. But courage tells you that the presence of fear doesn't change the necessity of action. Too many people wait for fear to vanish before stepping forward, not realizing that fear never truly disappears. The ones who build the future understand this. They step into the room, they share the vision, they take the risk. Not because it feels safe, but because it feels necessary. That's why this moment is powerful. You're not being asked to show up with perfect answers, with flawless execution, or with guaranteed success. You're being asked to bring courage. The courage to think differently when the world clings to convention. The courage to put your reputation on the line for something that matters more than your comfort. The courage to fail publicly, to face criticism, to endure misunderstanding, all because you know that the vision is worth it. That is the true requirement here. And here's something important to recognize. Courage isn't something you're born with fully formed. It is built, brick by brick, through the choices you make daily. Every time you speak up, when it's easier to stay silent, you build it. Every time you take a step toward a dream that others dismiss, you strengthen it. Every time you stand again after a setback, your courage grows. These small decisions accumulate until they shape a person capable of standing at the center of monumental change. So, if you've been requested into this moment, it's because you've already proven, in small and consistent ways, that you can carry courage when it's required. This is where education blends into motivation. Education equips you with knowledge, tools, strategies, ways of understanding the world. Motivation drives you to use those tools when hesitation would otherwise hold you back. But courage is what allows you to step beyond the predictable and enter the unknown. And the unknown is where the most important opportunities always live. It's never the well-lit path that leads to transformation. It's the uncharted territory, the places others are too afraid to venture. Courage is what takes you there. Consider this truth. Every great innovation we now take for granted was once seen as reckless. The first people to propose traveling through the air were mocked. The first to dream of connecting voices across oceans were dismissed. The first to imagine reaching beyond the planet were told it was impossible. What allowed them to persist wasn't certainty, it was courage. They accepted the ridicule, the failures, the doubts, and still moved forward. Because courage told them that creating something meaningful was worth more than avoiding criticism. And the world changed because of it. So what does this mean for you? It means the most important thing you can bring into this meeting isn't a perfect plan, but a willingness to risk. A willingness to look at the problem on the table and say, I don't know exactly how yet, but I'm ready to find out. A willingness to carry the weight of failure if it comes, because you know that failure is not the end, but a stepping stone. A willingness to put everything you are on the line for the sake of what could be. That willingness is courage in its purest form. The educational piece here is that courage can be trained. Just like a muscle, it strengthens with use. The more you expose yourself to risk, the more you learn to handle it. The more you practice sharing your ideas, even when they feel fragile, the more resilient you become. Courage doesn't eliminate fear. It recalibrates your relationship with it. It teaches you to see fear not as a barrier, but as proof that you're in the right place. Because nothing meaningful was ever built without the presence of fear. And motivation is what keeps that training alive. Motivation reminds you why you started, why you endure, why you're willing to put yourself through the discomfort. When you combine motivation with education and courage, you create a force powerful enough to shift the impossible into the inevitable. That is the mindset being sought from you in this moment. Understand this clearly. The courage you bring into the room doesn't just affect you. It inspires others. When one person has the audacity to risk, it creates permission for everyone else to consider doing the same. Courage multiplies. It spreads. And it's often the quiet spark from a single individual that lights the fire for an entire movement. That is why this opportunity exists for you now. Because your courage has the potential to ignite something larger than yourself, something that echoes far beyond this single meeting. So when you arrive, don't underestimate the weight of what you carry. The courage to dream, to act, to fail, to rise again. That is what separates those who watch history from those who write it. And you are being asked to write it. What changes everything in a pivotal moment isn't politeness or surface-level conversation. It's the willingness to stretch the mind far beyond what feels safe. The kind of dialogue that matters is not comfortable, it's challenging. It takes you to the edge of what you think you know and forces you to consider what lies beyond. That's why you've been asked to be present. It isn't about filling time. It's about exploring ideas until the boundary between the possible and the impossible dissolves. Too often, conversations are wasted on small talk, on topics that orbit around comfort zones. But the conversations that shape the future operate differently. They are raw, intense, and demanding. They force you to confront assumptions and to ask questions that have no easy answers. Questions like, what if the systems we've relied on are no longer sustainable? What if the way we've always done things is the very reason progress stalls? What if the risk of inaction is greater than the risk of trying something radically new? These are not casual questions. They are the foundation of meaningful change. When you walk into a room where the future is being designed, you are expected to bring that mindset with you. The expectation isn't that you agree with everything or that you arrive with solutions already packaged neatly. The expectation is that you're willing to think aloud at the edge of possibility, to take your own mind apart and rebuild it in real time as the dialogue unfolds. That willingness is rare, and it's why you've been called forward. Think about how this applies in practice. Every breakthrough humanity has achieved began as a conversation that seemed absurd at first. Imagine being in the room when someone first suggested building machines that could fly. At that time, gravity was seen as absolute, unbreakable. But someone dared to ask, what if? Imagine being in the room when people proposed connecting voices across continents, when wires and waves were considered impossible tools for communication. Imagine the conversations that sparked the idea of leaving Earth entirely, when the moon was thought of only as a distant light in the sky. Those conversations began with discomfort. They were not logical to the majority. But the few willing to have them changed the trajectory of everyone who followed. That's the kind of dialogue you are stepping into. It isn't about comfort, it's about design. Design of ideas, design of strategies, design of futures. And design requires experimentation. It requires letting go of the need to be right and embracing the courage to be wrong in pursuit of something greater. The educational takeaway here is that the best conversations aren't competitions. They're laboratories. They're places where ideas are tested, stretched, reshaped, and sometimes discarded, all in service of finding what works. The motivational side of this is equally important. If you fear being wrong, you will hold back your best ideas. If you fear being judged, you will water down your contribution until it's indistinguishable from everyone else's. But when you embrace the mindset that this is not about ego, but about building something larger than yourself, you unlock the freedom to say what others won't. That freedom is where innovation is born. It's where the next step forward begins to reveal itself. This is why being requested into such a meeting is not casual recognition. It's a challenge. A challenge to show that you are willing to contribute, without hesitation, to risk exposing ideas that are raw and unpolished, because they might hold the seeds of transformation. A challenge to move beyond safe answers and into the kind of vision that makes people pause, reflect, and reconsider what they thought was possible. You've already shown the ability to think in this way, which is why you've been chosen. But now the task is to amplify it, to bring that same mindset into a space where every word has the potential to spark momentum. And the truth is, your perspective may be the one that unlocks something no one else has seen. That's why you're there. Not to echo what's already been said, but to introduce a thought, a challenge, or a vision that shifts the direction of the entire dialogue. The educational reminder is this: great conversations don't just happen. They are created by those who show up prepared to engage fully, to listen deeply, and to contribute boldly. They are shaped by those who resist the temptation to play it safe and instead embrace the risk of thinking differently. And when you consistently practice that kind of dialogue in your own life, whether in small groups, in work, or in personal projects, you develop a skill that becomes invaluable in moments like this. You learn to communicate in a way that doesn't just share information, but provokes transformation. So when you step into this room, remember that your role is not to be cautious. It is to be catalytic. Your courage, your resilience, your willingness to test boundaries, all of these converge in conversation. And conversation, when elevated to this level, is not just words exchanged. It's the birth of futures. It's the place where visions take form and where the seeds of revolutions are planted. That is why you've been requested. That is why your presence matters. Opportunities of this magnitude are never about convenience. They are about responsibility. Responsibility is not a word people often embrace willingly, because it carries weight, expectation, and accountability. Yet responsibility is what separates those who watch the future unfold from those who help shape it. The reason you have been requested into this moment is because someone recognizes that you are capable of carrying weight, not as a burden, but as a tool to create impact. The capacity to take responsibility for ideas, for outcomes, for possibilities, is the hallmark of those who move the world forward. Responsibility begins with clarity. Before you can act effectively, you must understand the consequences of your actions and the scope of the opportunity before you. That clarity does not come from textbooks or instruction manuals. It comes from reflection, from experience, and from a willingness to confront reality without distortion. It comes from asking questions that others avoid. What is the true scale of the problem we are trying to solve? What assumptions have we made that may be limiting us? What are the unintended consequences if we fail to act decisively? By facing these questions head on, you gain a perspective that allows you to act with confidence, purpose, and precision. The educational lesson here is profound responsibility is not passive. It is not about compliance or simply doing what is expected. It is active, dynamic, and requires initiative. When you take ownership of a situation, you become part of the solution rather than part of the crowd observing it. This mindset turns ordinary moments into pivotal ones because the people who embrace responsibility do not wait for permission. They take action. And the world always notices those who act decisively when it matters most. Motivation intersects with responsibility in a powerful way. Responsibility without motivation is a duty performed mechanically, without vision or energy. Motivation without responsibility becomes aimless, scattered, and ultimately ineffective. When responsibility and motivation align, however, they produce focus. Focus transforms potential into progress. Focus ensures that ideas are not only conceived but executed. Focus makes it possible to turn abstract visions into tangible outcomes. That is exactly the type of focus that this meeting demands. History provides countless examples of the transformative power of responsibility aligned with action. The builders of cities, the engineers of transportation, the innovators of medicine, the pioneers of technology, they all began by recognizing that the world needed something different and that they could deliver it. They understood that failure was not only possible but inevitable, and yet they accepted the responsibility of trying anyway. They did not wait for certainty or for perfect conditions. They acted because they recognized that the cost of inaction would be far greater than the risk of attempting something new. This principle applies to you now. Taking responsibility also requires courage. Courage to make decisions that may be scrutinized, to take risks that may be misunderstood, and to remain steadfast when results are uncertain. It requires the understanding that leadership, true leadership, is not about comfort or recognition. It is about stepping into situations where the stakes are high and committing to see them through. The willingness to do this is what differentiates those who are simply present from those who are pivotal. From an educational perspective, responsibility is a skill that can be developed. It grows each time you step up to solve problems others avoid, each time you accept accountability for outcomes, and each time you maintain integrity in the face of challenges. By practicing responsibility consistently, you build credibility, confidence, and influence. These qualities compound over time, creating opportunities that would otherwise remain out of reach. Being requested into a situation of significance is often the result of this compounding process. Another aspect of responsibility is the ability to inspire it in others. True impact is rarely achieved in isolation. Those who carry responsibility effectively are able to motivate teams, guide collaborators, and cultivate a culture where action aligns with vision. When you embody responsibility, you do more than execute ideas. You amplify them. You create a ripple effect that elevates everyone involved. That ripple effect is what transforms a single meeting, a single conversation, into the beginning of systemic change. Finally, recognize that being asked into this moment is not merely recognition. It is an invitation. It is an invitation to bring your fullest a sense of accountability, foresight, and initiative into a space where decisions will shape outcomes that extend far beyond this moment. Your presence is valued because it represents the capacity to respond decisively, to integrate knowledge with courage, to transform ideas into action, and to carry responsibility not as a weight, but as a source of power. That is why you are here, and that is what you are expected to contribute. When you stand at the edge of opportunity, the moment demands more than preparation. It demands presence. Presence means being fully engaged, fully committed, fully aware that what you contribute here does not exist in isolation. Every insight, every question, every bold statement has the potential to ripple outward, influencing decisions, strategies, and the course of progress itself. This is the culmination of everything that brought you here: your resilience, your courage, your alignment with necessity, and your willingness to take responsibility. To be present in this way is to become part of something larger than yourself, something that can shape the trajectory of countless others. Understanding the magnitude of presence requires a shift in perspective. Most people approach meetings, projects, and opportunities as incremental steps, as checkboxes on a timeline. But at pivotal moments, incremental thinking is not enough. You are being asked to operate on a different scale, to think exponentially rather than linearly. The problems and opportunities you are facing are complex, multi-dimensional, and high stakes. They demand a mindset that is capable of holding multiple possibilities at once, that can see patterns where others see chaos, and that can respond with both creativity and rigor. Presence is the bridge between knowledge and action, between vision and execution, between potential and impact. Every decision you make in this context carries weight. Even a small insight can trigger an idea that evolves into a transformative solution. Even a carefully framed question can spark a conversation that uncovers hidden risks or reveals untapped opportunities. That is why preparation alone is insufficient. Presence requires engagement, energy, and clarity of mind. It requires the ability to listen actively, to process rapidly, and to respond thoughtfully under pressure. Those who master this skill are not merely participants, they are catalysts. Education provides the foundation for presence. The tools, concepts, and frameworks you have learned over time equip you to understand complex situations, to anticipate consequences, and to devise effective solutions. But education is inert without application. The true test is your ability to translate what you know into what you do, in real time, when the stakes are high. Presence is the activation of knowledge. It is the moment when what you have studied, practiced, and internalized becomes actionable insight that others can follow. Motivation drives presence, because without internal energy and commitment, even the best preparation will falter. Motivation fuels the endurance to think deeply when fatigue sets in, to maintain focus when distractions arise, and to continue generating ideas, even when progress seems slow. When motivation is aligned with purpose, it produces sustained attention and engagement, the kind of engagement that ensures you are not just physically present, but mentally and emotionally invested in shaping outcomes. Courage is essential in this final stage. Presence in critical moments often requires the willingness to voice unconventional ideas, challenge assumptions, or take calculated risks. Fear may arise. The fear of being wrong, the fear of criticism, the fear of failure. But the ability to act despite that fear is what separates effective contributors from passive observers. Courage allows you to step into uncertainty, to navigate ambiguity, and to make decisions when complete information is unavailable. It transforms hesitation into action, and action into progress. Another critical aspect of presence is the ability to inspire it in others. Influence is not derived solely from authority or position. It is earned through engagement, clarity, and integrity. When you show up fully present, others mirror that energy. They listen more intently, think more creatively, and respond more decisively. Presence becomes contagious, elevating the entire environment and amplifying the collective potential of everyone involved. What starts with one individual can cascade into a culture of focus, innovation, and accountability. This final section of your journey into opportunity also demands reflection. To be present is to recognize that every choice you make in this moment is part of a larger narrative. The outcomes will extend beyond the immediate meeting or conversation. They will influence teams, systems, and ultimately the trajectory of progress itself. By holding this perspective, you ensure that your contributions are strategic, thoughtful, and impactful. You act not just for immediate results, but for long-term significance. Ultimately, the power of this moment rests in integration. You have been prepared through resilience, aligned with necessity, fueled by motivation, guided by responsibility, and tempered with courage. Presence is the integration of all these elements in real time. It is the manifestation of everything you have learned, experienced, and cultivated. It is the moment when potential is converted into tangible, meaningful action. To be fully present is to bring everything you are into a space where the future is being written, knowing that your participation is essential, not optional. This is why you have been called. It is not a reward, not a formality, not a coincidence. It is recognition that you possess the unique combination of clarity, courage, motivation, and resilience required to participate meaningfully at the edge of progress. Your presence is not just wanted, it is necessary. And the way you show up, fully engaged, fully committed, fully aware, will determine the impact not only of this moment, but of everything that follows. As you step back and take in everything this moment represents, remember that opportunity, responsibility, courage, and presence are not abstract concepts. They are tools, each one essential to shaping the future. You have been called not because it is convenient or because recognition was owed to you, but because your actions, mindset, and vision have demonstrated the capacity to influence what comes next. Every challenge you have faced, every risk you have taken, every failure you have endured, has prepared you to participate meaningfully in this moment. The future does not wait for perfection. It does not pause for hesitation. It unfolds in real time, demanding action, demanding clarity, demanding commitment. And now you are equipped with the insight, the courage, and the determination to rise to that demand. You are called not just to witness progress, but to accelerate it, to help shape it, to ensure that what is imagined becomes reality. Carry forward the lessons embedded in resilience, motivation, alignment with necessity, responsibility, courage, and presence. Let them guide every decision, every interaction, every endeavor you undertake. Understand that your contributions matter, not just to yourself, but to everyone who will live in the world shaped by your actions. The world waits for those willing to act when others hesitate. It rewards those who see opportunity where others see uncertainty. It remembers those who, in the face of fear and doubt, chose to move forward. This is your moment to step fully into that role. This is your moment to transform potential into action, ideas into innovation, and vision into reality. Rise to it, own it, shape it.